All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh alongside Gene Collier. Nathan Heinz just tweeted me, said Steelers were 4-5 in 2016, ran the table, can still turn it around, but I think Sunday is a must-win at this point. I'm at the point where I think these next two games are must-wins, but yeah, there's no reason they can't turn things around. Who knows what you can even if you lose this game, you can rattle off a bunch of wins in a row, but I think you're going to need 9 or 10 wins. 10 wins would I think would get you into the postseason.
Yeah, teams who, think they're going to the playoffs or beyond, have to win home games, especially against, the Falcons are a good team. They're in the championship game, but that's still a game the Steelers should win at home. They should beat Kansas City at home. They didn't. They've really got to improve in a hurry here. That's true.
So 9 of 12, 12 games left. I think they got to win 9 of the next 12. To think about the postseason, which I think is doable, but their hardest part of the schedule is coming up. You got New England and Jacksonville.
Yeah, but you got Oakland.
Are they great when they traveled over to Oakland?
Rarely.
So, all right, back out to the phone lines. We're going to go out to Bill out in Punxsutawney. How you doing, Bill? Bill.
Yes, sir.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, not a whole lot.
Thanks for watching up in Punxsutawney.
Hey, no problem. I watch it about every night I can.
Okay, thank you.
So,
go ahead.
My question is, are they going to Bell's supposed to come back in week 5. Now, he's let
week
the team
7,
down, but
I think.
I thought it was right after
the bye week.
The bye week.
Yeah.
Oh,
which the bye week would be the the start of the 15th.
We're in week 5.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in week 5 right now. So they have 2 more games before the bye week.
Right. Okay. Now he's planning on coming back. Are they planning on playing him, or are they just going to favor him and let him do what he wants to do?
Oh, there's no question if he comes back, they're going to play him. Gene, I don't think that's even a doubt. I still question if he is coming back, and B, how the players are going to welcome back him into that locker room, especially if their record is, say, 2-3-1. And, I think a lot of people would blame him for that record.
Well, Le'Veon Bell has told Jeremy Fowler of ESPN that he's coming back in week 7. He has not told the Steelers or anybody else. So I'll believe it when I see it. I think, he's done this kind of thing before, said one thing, done another. When he does come in, as Richie says, I think there'll be some problems there. The Steelers could ask for a 2-week roster exemption on him. I don't know what'll happen, but I wouldn't make any assumptions.
Yeah, not to mention that he might be out of shape. I heard he was out of shape. He looks out of shape, and he's definitely not in football shape. So you're getting a guy that potentially could be overweight, somewhat out of shape, not in football shape. He's going to need more than 2 weeks.
And angry.
And angry, yeah. So. And who knows, reluctant, to be the player that he was because he doesn't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't he like Earl Thomas's tweet or something about, he was like, I'm here for you or something. I forget what the tweet said, but. Yeah.
They're of a similar mind.
Yeah, so I know he doesn't want to get hurt because if he gets hurt,
then he
can kiss away $50 million at least.
That's a shame.
And I know you're with me on this, Gene, I still scratch my head and do not understand why he didn't sign that deal with the Steelers, 5 years, $70 million. I understand a lot of it wasn't guaranteed, but, he's going to play the first 3 years no matter what, and that was $45 million. So essentially that $45 million was guaranteed.
The Steelers are not spiteful, but but if they were, what they would do is next year they would put on him what's called the transition tag rather than the franchise tag. And next year the transition tag is 120% of what you earn in the previous season. To this point in the season, he's earned nothing. And if he doesn't come into week 7, you subtract all that money from his 18 salary, and that's what he gets 120% of. That will not be to his liking either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers do that. We got to take a break. Back to wrap things up. Coming up next. Stay right there.